Hey there. Okay, so I am back in the saddle here. It looks like the Facebook gods are not letting me connect to my journalism website, unfortunately. So that's all right. I guess that's kind of a sign that I need to build another channel to reach people using live stream tools that I have, which is kind of crazy, right? Like, I think I've spent over the years, thousands and thousands of dollars on this equipment that we have. And it just seems like every now and again, when you turn around, things just magically don't work. No explanation for it. But what do you do? All right. Hey, awesome. So we have somebody from Facebook. It just tells me Facebook user, but I think that's better than nothing. So I'm going to take it. So let's see here. We're going to go to copy this. We're going to go to done. I'm going to put this here on, okay, add comment, YouTube. Okay. So it looks like we're getting at least some feeds. So this is a good sign. I am happy. So bear with me while I kind of figure out where everybody else is at. And then I'm going to see if I can get it to pop up in my, there it is. Okay, great. Perfect, Throck. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go at, and then there we go. Everyone, we are live for Q&A Friday. It is 12:48. Sorry, I'm talking out loud. Give me a second here. Tune in to ask questions ASAP. There we go. Okay, good. So I just sent that out. Hopefully, people see it, and we have a good old robust conversation here about bulk rehab. But guys, well, I'm not going to say that, but gosh darn it, we sure need to have a talk about this program because it is really peculiar. Every single day, it seems like I come across some oddball information that I was unaware of before. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to give I think moving forward with these Q&A Fridays, what I'm going to do is we're going to have a tip of the week based on what I've seen veterans asking about in our group. I want to point out that our group is almost 40,000 veterans strong. I'm sure there's some, bots in there too, but whatever. We're going to take it. And so we got a lot of folks that are in the group. It's really good stuff. If you are watching this on a different platform in YouTube or in LinkedIn, I would encourage you to follow the link at the bottom of this description. Basically, this is a group that I created back in 2009. We've gone through the ringer. Some of the people that are in this group have been with it the whole time, or most of the time anyway. And the whole point behind the Facebook group was to create something where veterans can go and get feedback from other veterans, because I'm just one guy. I know that if you're working with a VSO, they're just one VSO. They have 1,000 veteran clients. VRE counselors have, their kinds of issues, So I just want to point out that this Facebook group, if you're watching this, it's in the description, but basically it's facebook.com/groups/Voc Rehab. Go to this group, check it out. You got to follow the instructions to get into it, right? Because I create this so that we can get rid of bots and fake accounts, fake people, stuff like that. So you got to, provide a real email. You got to answer the questions, follow our group rules, behave as well as you can anyway. I don't expect every disabled veteran to be perfect because God knows I'm not. But let's see here. Okay, so good. If you have a question, I'm going to get to the questions in a little bit. If you have any questions, pop them in below the comment here. I can only see questions in Facebook and in YouTube. nowhere else. So I want you to be sure that if you happen to see this, that you ask the question somewhere that I can see it. And if I do see it, I will do my best. If I can't, then I apologize in advance. I'll just do the best that I can. But anyway, again, I can't say enough about this group. It is something that I created. There was nothing like it at the time. You could talk to like Disabled American Veterans, which I'm a lifetime member, and some other organizations, and people just weren't talking about, at the time, vocational rehabilitation and employment. Now it's called Veteran Readiness and Employment, which is a name that I hate, but I feel like it doesn't really tell you what the program is or does, but that's just kind of how it is. However, this was created so veterans could give back to each other, provide examples from their own experiences. It's something that I've felt passionate about for a long time. I hate that ding noise. Holy crap. Can I shut that off? Hang on a second. Here, I know what to do. Okay, there we go. No ding noise. Okay. Sorry about that. So anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, there is a group in Facebook. There's a couple groups now. There have been some spinoffs of what we've been doing. But this group is called Disabled Veterans Chapter 31 Voc Rehab. That's my group. Veteran Readiness and Employment is still called Voc Rehab. Informally, it's, whatever, even though they've changed the name. I may update it and call it, Chapter 31 VR&E. But I still think Voc Rehab sounds better. I don't know. Maybe that's part of why they changed the name. They wanted it to seem a little more obtuse. But who knows? God only knows. The VA does that sometimes. So anyway, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna walk through some of the questions that veterans asked, and I am a VA accredited attorney. I wrote a book on Voc Rehab benefits. This is what I do for a living. This is there are a lot of people that do know a lot of things about VR&E. Many of them are called Voc Rehab counselors. They work for the agency. There are some in YouTube and elsewhere that are also that know a lot about it and are solid. I can only say that as far as I know, I'm the only VA accredited attorney who does this. They paid for my undergrad and my law degree, and a part of my startup costs for becoming a veterans rights attorney. So I do benefits work, but I also focus on veteran rights issues because somebody needs to, and there's not a lot of attorneys, even the ones that do benefits work, that don't maybe aren't like gutsy enough to like jump in on some of the other things that I do. So the other part of what I do is disabledveterans.org, where I write about VA stuff, not just VRE, but also get into benefits, get into policy work, other advocacy. So anyway, check it out. A lot of different resources out there. And otherwise, I'm just going to kind of jump into it, but I do want to say a couple things about the tip of the week. This is the tip, okay? Tip of the week, veterans. If you have a request for VA for any reason, put it in writing, sign it and date it, and then submit it. Not just an email, but fax it so that it gets into the system somehow, into VBMS. VBMS is the electronic claims record. You can send things to it by using the email or the fax number for the Janesville Evidence Intake Center. It's essentially the same building. It's a big PO box office, or big, big PO blah, 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 post office. So, but that's it. That's the Evidence Intake Center. It's just a U.S. post office. So check it out. Definitely fax in, what you can. I'm going to post something about it. I can't remember. I think I wrote about this a while ago. I drive through Janesville, kind of by Janesville, on the way to family down in Chicago from the Minneapolis area, and happened to come across Janesville one time because I was just curious. I was like, where is this Evidence Intake Center? And it's a post office. And then I eventually figured out after asking some of the clerks, what the government contractor was that picks up the mail, and they told me, and I went and actually found where they're at in Janesville, Wisconsin, of all places, and that's where your stuff goes. And anyway, I thought it was interesting because it's a lot of people believe that the VA is just a bunch of VA employees, and really the VA is like, yeah, they have 400,000 employees, which is a lot, but they probably have like 1.5 million contractors that work for those 400,000 employees to keep the machine on. Just a guess. I don't know. Maybe it's a lot less. I don't know. But I know that there are many thousands of government contractors that work throughout America and also in other countries. Unfortunately, I'm sure that's true. But that that are helping out the VA, helping out veterans. So anyway, food for thought, something to check out if you happen to be through Janesville. Try to track it down, like I did. That was a kind of a fun little adventure. So having said that, I wanted to go through some of the questions. So I'd asked I had posed the question, "Do you have questions?" ? And this is what some of the veterans had provided. So again, if you're in the group, happens to be a Friday, I'm going to make a point to regularly announce in advance that we're doing this so that veterans can come in, ask their question in advance, and then we can have a real robust conversation about VR&E, because a lot of the questions are kind of the same but slightly different angles, because each veteran's case is different, and but there are a lot of similarities, that everyone's like kind of dealing with. The biggest, of course, being like, why won't my counselor respond to my emails or my phone calls, or why are they not a nice person? Those types of things are pretty general and common. So anyway, having said that, Amy Stanton asked, she is 90% and denied funding for college. So we as veterans need to kind of reframe how we approach VR&E. A lot of us, if you're like me, you came from a background where your parents probably didn't have a college degree. And here, I'm going to kind of sit back a little bit so I can get a little bit more comfortable. And so you may not be familiar with like exactly how to word what the request is that you're seeking. And so Amy's question points out, like I could probably write an entire, 1,000-word blog post about it, because it raises a number of different like points as far as like strategies go to how to frame your question. And it also goes to my tip, which is always put it in writing. Okay. And sign it, date it, and make sure it gets into your file somehow. Just sending it to your counselor in an email may not be enough. You may want to slap it on like a 21-4138 form, VA form, which is a personal statement form, and send that in, because VRE does not have appropriate, some of the forms that they're trying to use, they don't really respond well to, or the system doesn't internalize them properly. So there's a lot of issues that VRE has, that they're still struggling with, even though they have a budget of nearly $2 billion each year annually to try to help veterans like you get what you're promised. But, that is what it is. So, again, if you have questions while I'm rattling off about this, I can only see your questions if they are in YouTube or if they are in our Facebook group. Otherwise, they don't pop up on my screen. I'm using some software that helped me multicast this to different platforms. Just want you to be aware. So if it's on LinkedIn, I can't see it. So jump onto these other platforms and I will. Okay, cool. All right. So, hey there. All right. eSunrise got it back to me. Thank you for that. So here's what we got. So Amy's question. She's a 90% veteran. She was denied funding for college due to working full time. Okay. But I am at a low paying job and would like to finish my degree in library sciences. Any advice on how to get VR&E to see that I need more education? Okay. So there's a lot to unwrap in this one question. Okay. First of all, Veteran is 90%. Okay. Odds are that veteran, and again, this is a generalization, but odds are that veteran is going to need accommodations or have aggravation to disabilities in many types of employment. Here, she didn't say exactly what she's doing, but she said low paying job. Okay. So is it Walmart? I'm working as a greeter at Walmart, and that's my full-time job. Well, it could be. That could be what happened. I don't know enough. So this is kind of like, helping veterans, kind of writing 101. Like, how do we articulate and flush out the necessary information so that we can help somebody else make a more informed decision? So with that said, we have veteran 90%. Odds are, if found approved, that veteran would probably have a serious employment handicap based on the statistics that we are aware of. But that doesn't necessarily mean that will be, that is the case. But it does mean that it is high odds, high odds. So let's see here. I'm waiting for the stream. Okay, there we go. Bam, pops up. Good. Okay, so, I see that we have a fair amount of questions here. Oh, boy. All right. So real-time comments. Turn that on, please. That is not everything. It's nuts. So, yeah, again, like technology, right? You'd think it would work. All right. So, first, she's 90%. Second, denied funding for college. That's the wrong question. You're asking all the wrong stuff here. So, first of all, you're a disabled veteran, right? Second, you have articulated here, I guess you would be inferred that you have a job. The job is not suitable, okay? It is not suitable for you. We don't fully understand why, but I'm guessing it's not consistent with your aptitudes, abilities, and interests. Certainly not your interests, which is part of suitability. And you would like to finish your degree in library sciences. So there's a couple things here. I would reframe this dialogue. So instead, what I would say is, and again, I'm just guessing here. This is just for educational purposes, not legal advice. I don't know you. I've never looked at your information, but based on the information you're sharing here, I would think of it more like I am trying to obtain suitable employment and qualifications so I can become qualified in suitable employment. My current level of training does not allow me to gain and maintain suitable employment, so it doesn't qualify me for suitable employment. And so I want to become retrained to become a librarian. I am presently studying library sciences, so like a master MLS or something like that, master of library sciences or something. So I'm studying to become qualified and proficient at this. And because of my disabilities, I need a higher level of training because I'm at a definite disadvantage when competing against non-disabled veterans or non-disabled people for the same occupations or whatever the appropriate rationale is based on your unique, circumstances. So to Amy Stanton, my feedback here is that you're looking at it wrong. You're trying to get approved. I know that you're trying to get approved because you want a new career. But the counselor may not understand that, and they only spend like 10 seconds looking at these anyway, usually before that's not fair. There are some that spend a lot of time. There are other counselors that don't. And so they spend a very minimal amount of time often. I see this frequently because of their quota system. And VRE has a quota system, and they have to meet certain time thresholds. And so they do chew through these cases quickly and develop a bias or a opinion about a case maybe before they get the evidence. And so they violate a veteran's due process rights because they don't carefully consider and address all the relevant evidence a veteran may present. Okay. And so for you, what you're really saying is, I want to become a librarian. I presently don't have suitable employment. My disabilities, I'm just assuming your disabilities are probably aggravated by your current job, or your current job is not consistent with your aptitudes, abilities, and interests, or both. Just the fact that you are employed full-time, even if you're full-time like Walmart greeter, while there are some voc rehab counselors that I'm aware of that believe that that is appropriate, it is that's garbage. It is certainly not appropriate. That's not true. It's not a fair interpretation or fair treatment of the requirements that a VRC is supposed to follow when they're adjudicating a case. So just food for thought. Anyway, so for you, just because you're employed full-time, it shouldn't preclude anything. If the job that you have is suitable and you just want a different career just cause, but the current job is suitable, well, then that's a different issue. And then probably you'll have a harder time getting approved, if not impossible time, because you are suitably employed. But if you're not suitably employed, it doesn't matter whether you're full-time or part-time. You could be a full-time greeter at Walmart. That in and of itself is not sufficient. So there's a difference between being necessary and sufficient. And so in this kind of context, that's what we're talking about. So just really, you got to reframe your question. And I think it's a great question. Anyway, so I'm going to move on to the next one. Andreas asks or says, let's see, where's the question at? Okay. I was recently accepted and approved for your blah, blah, blah. So veteran has a bachelor's degree, 1 month left. I'm posting on, oh geez. So I qualified for, 1 month left, qualified for VRE. When I got my letter, it says that I was awarded the rate for 11 months. I was a bit worried because I assumed not to worry. Oh, okay. Andreas is talking about the extension ability. So when you get into VRE, a lot of veterans don't realize that even if you use up all but like 1 day of Chapter 30 or Chapter 33 or GI Bill benefits, as long as you still have GI Bill entitlement remaining and you get in, you can use it or receive or be qualified for VR&E entitlement at the higher BAH amount. So like it's pretty significant. So the high BAH like in LA is like $3,300 a month or something like that, maybe up to $4,000 in San Francisco. If you don't maintain your GI Bill when you apply and get approved for VRE, then you have problems because then you are outside of that window and you'll end up with, you'll end up with like, if you're a single veteran, you'll get $650 instead of $4,000 or whatever it is up in San Francisco. It's a huge difference. It's kind of I feel that it is a massive hurdle to veterans even using the benefit because it's just the subsistence amount normally for VRE is just inconsequential. It makes it really hard to go. And that's, I hope that at some point Congress changes how they interpret that regarding the monthly subsistence and allow for VR&E veterans to also receive the higher BAH amount that veterans can qualify for as long as they don't run out the GI Bill. So if you apply, you got 1 day, boom, you get in. Let's say you got 4 years of training. Just because you had that 1 day that you kept of your GI Bill, you'll be able to get BAH at that higher amount for the entire duration of your VRE training. It's fantastic. It's a really cool thing that they've done. I just wish that it wasn't so tricky, to get that sorted out. But it can be. So in fact, what the counselor told you is true. And as long as you're in and you're going, then you should be good to go, Andreas. Fernando writes, I recently applied for VRE and was denied having a job. No, it's another job one. And not being in jeopardy of losing my job. I explained to my counselor how my position directly affects and exacerbates my SCDs, so service-connected disabilities. What would my next step? Okay, so depending on your situation, if it's a straightforward case, you could talk to a VSO. Maybe a VSO can give you free help and give you a tip on how to best appeal it, looking at your own unique case. Again, each case is unique, so I don't want to say, there's really no one size fits all here. There are a lot of VSOs that are great when it comes to disability comp. There are fewer that really understand how VRE works. So just make sure that the person, if you do happen to want to go with free help, go that route. Talk to somebody that you trust. If you do want legal advice or whatever, I mean, obviously this is something that we do at our law practice. But it's not, I don't usually do this for free. I have a fair amount of pro bono clients, but most of my clients are paid, and it's not inexpensive to hire an attorney for anything. So just so you're aware, that those are your options as far as that goes. Now to your specific situation, what you're saying here, basically, again, it goes back to what Amy's case was, which is I'm denied because I have a job. And for you, you're not in jeopardy of losing your job, at least as far as you know. However, your job aggravates your disabilities. So I would say in this context, on its face, this sounds like a situation where the VRC did not carefully consider your evidence or did not develop and address the required factors when evaluating an employment handicap or serious employment handicap. I wish you could see my hands while I'm explaining it. Anyway, because down here they're at my stomach, and I'm like, oh, da, 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 da. Anyway, so for you, if I were to guess just based on this statement, it sounds like they probably didn't carefully consider your evidence or your disabilities or something along those lines. You're basically arguing that the current job that you have, even though you have it, is not suitable because of this, and you therefore need retraining into a different job. So there's VRE usually likes to see that a veteran in that circumstance has exhausted available options at trying to find alternative work that they may otherwise be qualified in. Now, it could be that you're also not qualified for other types of work, or who knows? There could be a lot of things going on. So that's my feedback. I think for you, it depends on what the evidence is, what direction you pick. Right now, because of the backlog at the board, I would never suggest using a formal appeal if you can avoid it. I mean, that's not always true in some instances, but the board has really goofed up their appeals backlog, and I don't see them really digging out of it. So basically causing the pig in the python kind of scenario where there's just a huge backlog of appeals once again, which is what VRE VA promised that they would sort out if the government just gave them more money and all these IT systems. And if they stripped some of our rights as veterans away from us, then somehow they would be able to get it right. And this was in the Appeals Modernization Act process between 2017 and 2019. And obviously they didn't do it right. And so they took our rights, and then they're like, oh, sorry, I guess these appeals just take a long time anyway. Whoops. And so taxpayers pay billions of dollars to upgrade their systems, and veterans still get screwed. So it's unfortunate, because if the appeals process worked the way it should and was actually really streamlined and fast, man, I'll tell you, this would be a really efficient system, and veterans would have a much easier time getting justice. Just right now, unfortunately, with the appeals process being backed up that way for years and years like it used to be, it's just not swift in any manner. It's really, really a shame. So having said that, when it comes to what step, I would probably pick a supplemental claim or higher level review, depending on the evidence. But you really got to dig through the evidence. So like me as a VA accredited attorney, I have VBMS access, so I can get into my clients' files right away. It used to take 6 months to a year to get a copy of the file on CD-ROM, which is really unacceptable. But now we can move a lot faster. So I can, the second that we get a 2122A filed with the agency, within a couple days, I can usually get access to the file right away. So it's just a real godsend. As far as that goes, that's one area where the IT stuff is at least better. So that's my take on it. So let's see here. Moving to the next question. Dottie, I believe. It looks like Dottie asks, recently approved for bachelor's, 2 masters, program for CS, which I'm not sure. I'm assuming computer sciences. My question is, how much is too much? Computer science. Okay, so counselor was given verbal approval for okay. All right, so this is a question where a veteran is approved for computer science, and the veteran is going to be getting a master's degree. They're asking what type of, what should they request? So make sure that you have a desk that's ergonomically correct and that they can actually order it for you. It's become harder for veterans to get ergonomic systems through VR&E because VR&E has now been kicking that over to the Veterans Health Administration, and the Health Administration is not as friendly about this as VRE used to be. VRE used to like to not hinder their veterans with as much red tape as veterans are hindered with now. Now it's much harder just because of the red tape, and the counselors are worked harder, so they have less time to help. So that's great. They've created within VRE at least a death spiral. That's when it comes to some of this stuff that they just can't get out of. So the question is, basically, what should I request? Anything that reasonably might be needed to help you succeed, to accommodate disabilities, and also is reasonably needed by you and or by the students that are in the program, is generally accepted as necessary. So I think computer science is yes. You're asking here about noise canceling headphones. Probably that doesn't seem unreasonable, especially if you need to study in the library. And like, let's say you have a TBI or some mental health or hearing issue, and then that could be where headphones would be really awesome. I like Macintosh systems and prefer their operating system over PC, but that's just me, and partly because I don't really enjoy all the ways that you can, customize and manipulate your system. I just like it to turn on and go because I need to go, and I need to go fast. I don't have time to mess with all these other little nitnoidy things that slow a system down in a PC. So, don't get me wrong. I also use, PCs. I have a Microsoft, what, I don't know what they call it, like a laptop slash notebook, I guess it is. So I use that, but anyway, so that's, let's see here. I'm just seeing if I have any other questions. Blah, blah, blah. Nope. Okay. Nope. Okay. And then next is, so we have the question there. Great. I think we handled it. So whatever's reasonable, whatever your doctor thinks is normal that you need. Could be live scribe pens, that record notes for conversations and whatnot. I had that. That's one of the things I got. I also received a MacBook Pro and a Mac Pro and a Mac Mini and iPad desk, 2 desks over the years. I was in Voc Rehab for a long time. So anyway, so in fact, I still use my Voc Rehab desk, both of them actually, and I use this chair, which is my Voc Rehab chair, which is Herman Miller, by the way. If you are watching this, I should probably try to get a plug from Herman Miller at some point, because I absolutely love their chairs. And if you can, if your person happens to actually want, a chair that is good for somebody with lower back issues like myself, I mean, Herman Miller, hands down. It's definitely the way to go. So that's my feedback. And a desk that goes up and down, monitors that are bigger than 30 inches, a system that can handle multiple monitors, and potentially dictation software, because we're moving into that era of AI and dictation. And if you have like I have neuropathy issues in my hands at times, and other challenges that are getting worse. So for me, dictation is going to be a bigger issue. So, for food for thought anyway. So dictation software that works, Dragon is usually considered one of the best, although I'm sure there are some other solutions that might be better. But to each their own as far as that goes. Let's see here. So I think that... Yeah, so going back to Dottie's question, whatever's reasonable, whatever you think you're reasonably going to need, and then talk to a doctor to get support for that if they're going to support it. If not, then you may have to buy it on your own, and that's okay, because you're getting tuition and everything else covered. So, you're better off than 90% of your classmates. So feel blessed to be there, But anyway, so going on to the next one. Okay, Anthony, another veteran, says, I don't have anything left in my 911. Everything went to my kids, and I never used it. I am 100%. Oh, okay, so Adam, or Anthony, to your question here, I have been told, I've asked this question before, and I have been told that veterans that give their GI Bill to their kids can still potentially receive the higher BAH under VR&E, which is a separate program. So that's what I heard. I haven't really had a case on point about that, but definitely check it out. Hey, I will. I see your question, Joe Nogo. I see your question, and there's some others. The Facebook questions are not. I can't see the name, but I can see that you're asking, so I can at least go through those. I just want you to be aware. East Sunrise, I see your question. Jolly Green, I see your question on pilot training. Happy to answer that in a second. So going back to, so 9/11, if you give it to your kids, I think in some instances you could probably still get the higher BAH, and which is great, right? So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So you give your GI Bill to your kids, and then potentially get the higher BAH through VRE, and that's awesome. So next one is I am 100%. Do you automatically qualify for VRE? The answer is no. Each case is different. A person with 100% that's like unemployed, and the unemployment is no fault of your own, probably going to get, found entitled because you're unemployed. A veteran who is employed with 100%, which a lot of veterans are, I am, I'm 100% and I am employed. And I'm employed by myself. I'm, own my own business. But having said that, I think that just the 100% on its own does not mean you're qualified. You will only know when you apply, and then based on their responses, then you'll find out. But each case is kind of unique and different that way. Throck asks, there's so much about college, but what about internships and apprenticeships? Great question. There are on-the-job training programs and union programs for vocational type training, getting back to work, things like that. There are also retraining. There's a lot of different ways that a person can go about unconventional employment training opportunities through VRE. You just have to find a way to thread the needle. And there's not as much information about it because 70% of all veterans, or 80% or whatever it is, of all veterans using VRE go through long-term training. So there's just not as much about the other benefit types. So that's my feedback there. So anyway, one more question. Adrian asked, do you have to be unemployed to qualify for VRE? The answer is no. I've helped a lot of veterans that have jobs. There's a bunch in this group even that have jobs and qualify for VRE anyway. And I've been able to help veterans who are employed in jobs where they earn a fair amount still get qualified for VR&E benefits. So food for thought, where there's a will, there's a way. And as long as the evidence demonstrates that you have a employment handicap and potentially serious employment handicap, then, the employment doesn't matter as much. So, and in fact, somebody who is unemployed, as long as it's not within your control, in other words, you got fired or you're trying to find work and you can't get a job, those are great examples. I mean, what we're coming up now on, if there is a recession, I know it's maybe a point of debate for some people. I think we're already in a recession. And with AI, I use AI systems sometimes, and I can tell you that it does things faster and better in most instances. So for jobs like, I'll probably have a job as a lawyer for a long time because of what I do, and how I do it is really unique. There's not a lot of attorneys that do veteran benefits, legal work, and policy work, and other kinds of things, where you've developed kind of a unique skill set where that won't be probably replicated. But, I think the people that are going to have the most insulation from being replicated by AI are going to be construction workers and potentially contractors. Mechanics, where you absolutely can't really, there's no way to do the thing. So, by the way, if you're watching this and if you happen to notice on my wall, I have some art or on my bookshelf. So that's my son. he is had some fun this week and made some cards for me to have at work. So I think of him. So anyway, I hope you appreciate the wall art there that we have going on the bookcase. So otherwise, now I'm going to jump into the questions. Again, if you have a question, you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, I wish I knew the answer to this thing. Feel free to ask it. Hello, put it in the thing. I will hopefully see it. If I don't see it though, I'm really sorry. But anyway, so I'm going to start at the top. Facebook user. Oh, wait, nobody there. Facebook user. This is all I can see. Do you have any idea how long retroactive induction takes? Great question. I used to, and now it seems like it depends on what office is doing it and the counselor and whether the counselor knows what they're doing. So I have seen retro come back pretty quickly, like a couple months. I've also seen cases where it's taken over like a year and they're just kind of, we'll get around to it. So VRE is an odd duck when it comes to, processing anything. And they will sometimes come up with all kinds of weird excuses and other, who knows. So I've been told it shouldn't take more than a month or two. My practical experience in the cases that I work on where they owe the veteran over like $100,000 of retro, which has happened for my clients, way more than once. It can take a bit and they sometimes just don't like to do it and they have to get all these approvals and, so they've kind of created a system that is very difficult and onerous on veterans because usually it's because the IG or GAO pinged VA about doing something wrong. So then VA always, especially VRE, always overcorrects and then they put the burden on the veteran. And so then VRCs won't help. Self-employment is one of the biggest examples of that. Also, ILP plans are challenging. So they've really hamstrung the program. And it's too bad. It could be a lot better than it is. And they don't really want to listen to people like me. So, that's, they'll create their policies and I'll continue to beat their pants off like I do. But it, I don't know. It just, they don't want to listen to what I have to say. So, but they definitely will respect my authority when we win on appeals and get remands and other things, because they're just frequently wrong. Like I can't even get into it it's just ridiculous. So anyway, so retroactive induction, I don't know. It depends on a lot of things. Maybe 2 months to 1 year would be my guess, which is unacceptable. But that's what I've seen. So then we have next is Ben being okay. So this is a good one. Facebook user Ben, will being homeless affect my approval for VRE? So it should affect your approval in the sense that it should make it easier for her to get in. However, they may conclude that completing a plan of vocational benefits may not be feasible at this time because you're homeless. That doesn't mean that's what will happen. It just is a risk. So be aware of that risk. So we've already done the ergo. So here's kind of the ergo question in case somebody sees it and they want to see what we're talking about. That's the ergo question. That was good stuff. Next is, does having current employment disqualify you? Again, you see this, a lot of veterans asking this question, tells me that there are some VRE shenanigans going on where veterans are being denied and not carefully considered for benefits, even though they have employment. So, but yes, the answer, you can qualify for VRE benefits even if you are employed. It really depends on the type of employment, what you're trying to get accomplished, all that stuff. So just the fact that you're employed is not enough information to know whether a denial of benefits is proper. Facebook user, 100% P&T, 20% your vet. Let's see here. and know more than most VSOs and always share veterans' claims and benefits. Awesome. I wish I knew the name here. Anyway, cool. Question. Can somebody, let me post this one. Can someone confirm that Voc Rehab is now concurrent? So I don't know what you may mean. Usually the general gist of it is if you're in a normal training program for VR&E, you can't also have another training program going at the same time for the GI Bill. I suspect what you might be meaning is, I don't know what you mean. So there, you're meaning the higher 9/11 amount that a VRE benefit can get or a veteran can get if they are in the program and have 9/11 retirement or entitlement. So that maybe that's what you mean. Anyway, I'm not sure what you mean, but sometimes you can't use 9/11 benefits at the same time as VRE. So like, as I understand it, at least this is the way it used to be, you could not use the GI Bill to attend night school and at the same time, that same day, also be using VRE to attend day school for a different program. They, for whatever reason, just felt like that you shouldn't do that. Because even though they say that VRE is not an employment program, it basically is. Or in a educational program, it basically is, at least for 70 or 80% of the veterans that use it. So next question, is there a list of occupations that veterans have retrained into? That is a great question. I don't know of one. I could probably create something like that, but it would take a while. I would bet that VRE has a list in-house, if I were to guess. But it's probably not public. And we can get kind of general information. I mean, you could be approved for practically anything depending on the unique circumstances of your case. There are some things that maybe are outside of the pale, but most common sense jobs that a person can get only with additional training could be probably approved. Most, 90% or something, if I were to guess. So the next question. Okay. Self-employment. Are there any places where we can find disclosures? We're being initiated. This is a question where there is information about this software probably, and or data repository. The answer is probably, but it's going to cost money to get access to those databases. And by money, I mean like serious money, thousands of dollars. Like I alone, for my legal software, it costs my firm $1,000 a month to have legal research software that I don't use all the time. But when I do need it, I need it. So, you have to weigh that cost-benefit analysis there. Anyway, so for that type of request, you could do FOIA too if you want, but you'll have to pay for it most likely for a commercial interest. So food for thought. But yeah, I bet that the information's out there. You could probably request it, but you'll have to pay for it most likely. Now, the other angle could be on that type of question, VRE, if you're in VRE, they're supposed to, the secretary has the authority and obligation to use all available VA resources to support a person in Voc Rehab. It's a requirement. And so what I would wonder is if there is a resource like that available, I would bet that they have a duty to provide it to you to help you develop your case. So maybe do that. Say, I heard you had this. I would like to see it, and see if the counselor will do it for you. So that's what I would do. Give that a shot. And maybe they do have something. So Jolly Green asks, 50% apply for VR&E for pilot training. So this question, maybe, but pilot training is hard to get approved. And it is, oh, wow. There's all kinds of questions coming in here. Okay. So pilot training, hard to get approved. Veteran with 50% rating. You're going to have to get FAA approval to become a commercial pilot. The pilot training you could maybe get approved for is commercial pilot training, but nothing else. Like they won't do a private pilot's license most often. I think they're precluded from doing it. It must be part of a degree program normally and stuff like that, leading toward a commercial pilot's license. But as to your, individual disabilities, 50% PTSD, I don't know. I don't know enough about your unique case to know and advise, but I know that you would need to disclose that to the FAA before getting licensed, and you would need to pass a FAA physical, I think it's called. Let's see here. So we have, thank you for doing this. My pleasure. Glad to do it. Next one, what if your counselor never answers your emails and you just sent over your school paperwork for the first semester through their coverage? Yeah, you just got to kind of keep pinging them. That's all you can really do. There are lots of different steps. I've something on the website, disabledveterans.org, I believe, that walks through what to do. I could probably maybe create a course on that because it's so common. It's like seriously a big problem. So maybe I'll highlight something on the blog about it because it is such a common problem. All right. So next, okay, there we go. So another veteran, MBA approved, because my skills related to my bachelor's degree is over. So I made the argument. Okay. So because my skills related to my bachelor's was over 10 years old, so I made an argument. I don't know. Yeah, awesome. That's good news. All right, so I'm going to have to cut this short. I just realized I've been on here for darn near an hour, and I have stuff to do. So I'm going to cut through these questions a little more quickly, and then hang on a second. So we got Sunrise. You've been so patient. I posted my question on Facebook. Oh, okay. VA Accelerator Program. I've had one client go through that. I think that's the Self-Employment Accelerator. He was not impressed, I can't really speak to it because I didn't go through it, but there were some questions, I guess, about it and really if it was useful. But I know it's something that the VRE is paying for. Like I want to say it was like $100,000 to $300,000 a year to give veterans access to it. I remember one time I approached them and I wanted them to provide my guide to veterans in the same type of relationship, where they pay me to license it like you would normally. And man, they just don't want veterans to understand how this benefit works. But they're more than happy if you're a lieutenant colonel, retired. They're more than happy to cut your company a check for $300,000 a year for a learning module that only 100 veterans use in a year. So that's fun. That's how it works in this game here. Can you reuse VRE? Yes, I used VRE twice. BAH only applies when you have GI Bill. So the BAH amount is only if you have GI Bill entitlement. Otherwise, you receive the standard VRE subsistence payment, and that's a lot less. Currently working part-time to help me pay for school. Yeah. You should be able to use VRE benefits if you're working part-time. Not just VRE. I'm not sure what that is. New to the group. Hey, man, cool. One appointment with your law firm. Okay. And just so anyone's aware, if you guys have a question, obviously the group is great for most questions. If you have a specific legal issue related to a denial, we do free case evals at my law firm. That's free, right? But when we do representation, it is not free. Okay, the stuff that we do is different than what a VSO usually does for representation, and we charge a fee for that. And I'm good at my job, so just so you're aware. But it's so we don't necessarily handle one-off questions at the firm. What we really do is help with case evals, and if a veteran's denied, then we'll talk to you and try to point you in the right track. If representation is warranted, then we can chat about that. But a lot of veterans just need an email. I kind of helped one guy get approved for pilot training in 24 hours, where the VRC wasn't responsive. I said, hey, I'll send him an email to just do you a favor and see what happens. And he said, sure. Sent it in, and within 24 hours, that veteran was approved for VR&E benefits. So pretty awesome. Let's see here. I am new to this group. Okay, we got that. Waiting for a higher level review. Any benefit to go through? So, I mean, I like higher level reviews. It depends on what the evidence shows and other things. Supplemental claims can be great too. I mean, the AMA for VRE has made the system much better, and for me, it's become a tool I can use to force accountability on VR&E in a way that you couldn't do before. So, just food for thought. So the HLR, sure, I wouldn't go to a judge though for the board, because they're just so backlogged right now in VR&E. Like I have some appeals that we had filed under AMA way back, and man, they've been sitting there for 3 years, which I think is ridiculous, because VRE, it's not like disability comp where you're fighting over money. Usually, for VRE, you're fighting over, a new life, new retraining and stuff like that. And I find it to be unconscionable that the agency is making veterans seeking, support for training to force them to wait 3 years. I think it's absurd. But that's the system that we have ended up with. So if I wanted to get, Joe asks, if I wanted to get my VRE extended to get a bachelor's, should I wait until I finish? I mean, this kind of a situation can be more complicated. If you were only approved for an associate's, I mean, in and of itself, I'm kind of like, you're probably getting set up by a crappy VRC here. Because in this era of AI, where you're competing against not just other applicants that are not disabled, but also competing against computer systems that don't, are not real humans, an associate's degree, I'm not sure how far that's going to get you in the future labor market. So what you want to do is think about the goal that you really want. So if you want to be a lawyer, but you're working on your associates right now and that's all they approved, they're probably setting you up to be a paralegal only. I don't think a paralegal, for a lot of veterans, like I would have made a horrible paralegal. I'm a solid attorney, but bad paralegal. That would not have been my thing. But I'm sure that had the shoe been on the other foot and things gone a little bit differently, in this current, Biden administration era, very possibly could have been pushed into being a paralegal and not law school, and would have had to fight for it. Anyway, but point is, with an associate's, again, the focus needs to be on the vocational goal and what you need to get to that vocational goal. And also, if you have a serious employment handicap, whether additional training beyond what is normally considered required is warranted. So it's complicated. There's a lot of things. It's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of approach that it is with disability comp. This is voc rehab is more complicated than that. And that's why a lot of veterans, unfortunately, get screwed, because it's just a challenging program. So anyway, so that's Joe's feedback. So I want to make sure. Yeah, so you're basically wanting to evaluate whether it makes sense to make a change to your plan. And that depends on what your vocational goal is. It depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on your aptitudes, abilities, and interests. And a lot of other variables, like, is your counselor a good person? Do they really care about you? Or are they trying to get you out of the program quickly so they can, make their quota numbers look better? And that's what's going on. I don't know the answer to that. But let's see here. So you're going to want to look at what's going on, possibly request a change or review of your plan and a change. If you're going to request a change, you better put it in writing. I don't think the 2810212 is online anymore, but that used to be the VRE request for help, and they pulled it. I was using it a lot, and I don't think you can get it online right now because the VBMS system wasn't processing it correctly. And I would bet that there's a lot of veterans that sent it into VBMS and, it wasn't processed right. So send a 21-4138. That's a personal statement form. Request in writing, date it, why you want to change, what you want the change to. Request the review. You have a right as a veteran to request a review at any time and to request a change of your plan. Just make sure you do it in writing because otherwise it's really hard to get done if you don't do that. All right, so next, can you provide a general overview of independent living? Yeah, so no. But basically, it's a program to help you become maximally independent in daily living. And so that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Help with avocational things, help you with hobbies, basically, to keep you active. And then what else? With construction in your home, if you need like accommodative systems in your home, they can help with that. So there's a lot of different things you can get with ILP. Does supplemental appeal become a part of the over case file? Yes. Anything you send VR&E usually will be in your case file. Some people think otherwise, but generally speaking, if you send it in and it's intended to become part of your case file as part of an adjudication, then yes. Can I use 911 benefits for an additional degree after completing a degree? Yes. As long as you don't use it up the 9/11, as far as I know, yes. Cybersecurity on the list. Then David asks, will there be an increase soon to the... Yeah, there will be, but I mean, in my opinion, the cost of living is inflation is through the nose right now because of the cost of gas and oil and other things, commodities that are in short supply because of the war in Ukraine, because of our eroding relationships with the Middle East, because of BRIC. There's a lot of things going on right now where the cost of living is going up and up. Yes, it will go up. I think it went up 8% last year. It's going to go up like that again. That doesn't cover, in my opinion, it doesn't really cover full inflation though, because of how they've jiggered the numbers for the cost CPI, Consumer Price Index. So it doesn't include all the stuff that it used to with energy and other things. So, but yeah, it's going to go up quite a bit next year. How do you withdraw a VB or BV? Okay, so first of all, when you withdraw a BVA appeal, depending on what's going on, if you're outside of 1 year of when that appeal is filed, the matter that you're appealing will become final. Okay, you can usually submit a lengthy request to. Or not lengthy, what am I saying? Just fax into the board a withdrawal request. Just make sure you articulate what appeal you're withdrawing. If you know the docket number, great. If you know the date it was filed, something to help them find it. And then that should be sufficient to withdraw. Let's see. For pilot training, FAA will not medically approve a person with PTSD. They have access to your VA. The fine is CBI. So this is on pilot. Now, I don't know if I think I've heard of people getting approved with an FAA despite having PTSD, but they would need a waiver and have to jump through some significant hoops. So I can't recall exactly where I saw that. So, but the first step is getting the FAA physical, because otherwise you don't know. And then the VRE program won't burn up money on you if you don't have that information. Let's see. How does retroactive induction work if I've used... So rule of thumb with the retroactive induction is that you can get reimbursed for monies that you paid for tuition, books, fees, etc., as well as subsistence payments or subsistence monies that you did not receive. As long as the training that you're trying to get approved is required for your particular vocational goal that you're seeking, that is also approved by VR&E, right? So it must be an approved system. So like if you go to school for vocation A and you change part of the way through vocation A to vocation B and they're not really related, and then you get approved for vocation B, the money you spent toward vocation A probably will not be recoverable through retro unless it's like a generalized, like, let's say you changed your major and you had to take a certain amount of prereqs anyway, and you were only doing that, and then you changed your goal to a different goal, then as long as it's required as part of your training, in that context, maybe. If it's like specialized training toward occupation A, and now you're doing occupation B, like let's say you've failed out of med school and then you went to law school. Well, your med school training would not be applicable to law school, and you probably wouldn't get retro for that. So I hope that helps. Let's see, what else? Can I reopen a VR&E case? Yes. The technical way to reopen any claim with VA is to use a supplemental claim form with new and relevant evidence. Usually you don't have to reopen unless you're outside of 1 year from the date of the adverse decision that you didn't appeal, so the decision is final. Then you might need to reopen. A lot of veterans just reapply. That may or may not be the best approach in every case, but I know a lot of veterans do it. So food for thought. To reopen supplemental claim, you got to have new and relevant evidence with it. You can't just submit that form. So that's how that works. Last question. Okay. In the beginning of my voc rehab, I had an entitlement of 37 months. Because I used the GI Bill, when I counted on the months of how much I had left, I will need 3 additional months. Do I need to use my GI Bill after voc rehab entitlement? I don't think I understand that. Okay, so VR&E should be covering your entire training. VR&E can cover up to 48 months. If you used GI Bill toward training first that was reasonably required as part of your undergrad, it could be that VR&E could replenish the GI Bill fully, and then you could just use that when you're done with training under voc rehab. If you have a serious employment handicap as well, they should be able to move beyond 48 months. So hope that helps. Anyway, wow. So we got a lot of good questions here. I'm super stoked. I'm glad I got the software to work. It's a plus. It always, you never know. But yeah, anyone watching this, if you're fighting against the VA and you have a VSO that you trust, that understands how VR&E works, great. Talk to them. They can look at your case file, whatever. VSOs are generally limited in what they can and cannot do and how much time that they have to spend on cases. They just tend to, this isn't always true, but they tend to not have enough time. And VSOs mostly are not licensed to practice law in any state. And they're also not able to appeal to courts usually, especially not Supreme Court, Federal Circuit. But they do a great job at the front end, putting claims in, helping with basic appeals. When it comes to dealing with evidence and maybe challenging laws, I would not use a voc rehab counselor a VSO for that. And generally, because of most of the VSOs are chartered by Congress and have a fiduciary relationship with the government and or with the VA. So they can't challenge laws the way that we as attorneys can. And we as attorneys have a fiduciary duty only to the client, not to the VA in the same way that a VSO does. I mean, you look at most VSOs and they have, they get the office space from the VA right there. And then most of this, what they use is paid for by the government when it comes to that. And so there's, some questions there, at least in my mind, about, duty and who do they work for. But they're free, right? And so in some ways you get what you pay for. So you get free help, great. If that makes sense, awesome. If you want to hire an attorney, I am not free. I'm not cheap. I am good at my job, and, but you get what you pay for at times, I mean, that's just kind of the rub. But when you're looking for help, go pro se. If you're feeling confident about your case and you enjoy this type of stuff, well, maybe go pro se. If you want a little bit of help, but you're not really into it for hiring an attorney, then, go find a VSO that you trust. Most of my clients are, for VRE at least, are, in med school, in law school. They don't have time to chase around the VA, and they don't know how, and they understand the cost-benefit analysis between paying an attorney versus the risk of never winning the benefits. And so for them, that makes sense. But for others, it doesn't. So a lot of different things. But I encourage you, if, again, you're trying to get smart on VRE, go to disabledveterans.org and check it out. And we have a lot of free stuff there. This group for Facebook, we have 39,000 plus people. Check it out. There's a lot of stuff. So, okay, I'm getting some people coming in here. Your post on 9/11 expired before you could use all of it. Will you get housing? Okay, so I'll answer these couple questions and I got to go. So the answer is yes. It just will be significantly lower than the BAH amount, or the subsistence at the 9/11 BAH amount that you could get if you had entitlement. So there's that. And then somebody else says, should I be expecting anything? Also, VA has had a I'm not totally sure about this question. Like, should I be expecting anything? I'm not sure what you mean. Odds are no extra money, at least. If you happen to want to try to use VRE, I would encourage you to do that so you can become, gainfully employed, hopefully, and have a career that you enjoy. And sometimes that's worth losing the little bit of money that you get for a subsistence payment, having a little bit of sanity and a career that you enjoy. So it's worth looking at. Facebook user, what happens if you were trying to apply for a job? Do you get flagged? I'm not sure what that means. What if you're trying to apply for a job and do you? I don't know enough about what you mean by flagged. I know that if you are employed and you have like 100%, a good example, you have 100% disability for PTSD, let's say. That's the most common one. And part of that says you have 100% preclusion from working in a workplace. It will be hard for you to get approved for VR&E benefits. Not impossible, though, because I think everybody deserves a shot. So, but VRE will frequently not approve those folks, and they'll have to fight for it, and that's hard when you're 100% PTSD. So anyway, I hope that helps, and otherwise, God bless you all. Have a great upcoming weekend. My son, you can see his artwork back there. His birthday is this weekend, so we're looking forward to it. Otherwise, I'm liking these. If you have any more questions or comments, or you want more content like this on Fridays, awesome. I enjoy it. It helps me kind of get my brain going with these quick questions, and I think I finally figured out how to use Facebook in their new system, or some of the new updates. So just look forward to doing this more. So until next time, God bless. Have a good one.